For cocky recruits mocked a quiet officer in the mess hall. They thought she was weak. But in just 45 seconds, she shattered their pride and taught them a lesson they would never forget. The morning at Naval Station Norfolk was calm. The sun had barely risen, brushing steel hulls with pale light. Engines rumbled in the distance as ships prepared to sail. Seagulls wheeled over the harbor, their cries carried by the wind. On the base, the mess hall buzzed with routine trays, voices, trading jokes, coffee machines hissing. At a corner table sat Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes. She ate quietly, posture perfect, her dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Her uniform was crisp, insignia polished. She barely moved except to sip coffee or turn a page of the small manual she read between bites. To most, she seemed unremarkable. To trained eyes, she carried a stillness that drew attention without asking for it. Then the recruits arrived. Young men, fresh from boot camp, boots striking the floor in rhythm. Their steps were heavy with pride, their eyes bright with overconfidence. They had survived training, and now they felt untouchable. They walked with exaggerated bravado, broad chests, and careless grins. Their eyes landed on Sarah. Alone at her table, she looked small compared to their swagger. To them, she was nothing more than an officer with paperwork and a desk. Not someone who could command fear. Not someone who could fight. "Check her out," one whispered loudly enough for others to hear. His name was Jenkins, the tallest of the group. Shoulders broad, voice rough. Doesn't even look like she could lift a rifle. The others laughed. They weren't cruel, just cocky. They nudged one another, amused at their own joke. One leaned closer to Sarah's plate, smirking. "Ma'am, you even do push-ups." A few sailors nearby glanced up, sensing trouble, but Sarah did not flinch. She did not raise her eyes. She tore a strip of bacon, chewed slowly, and set her fork down. Every movement was deliberate, controlled. When she finally looked up, her gaze was calm but sharp. It measured them the way radar measured distance, not hostile, not amused, just aware. The recruits mistook her silence for weakness. They had been trained to recognize aggression, not quiet. "So what do you even do here?" another asked. "Paperwork. Someone has to, right?" His tone was mocking, but eager for dominance. Sarah folded her napkin carefully and placed it beside her plate. She set down her mug of coffee. The small sound seemed louder than the chatter around them. She raised her eyes again. "You boys new here?" she asked softly. They puffed out their chests. "Yes, ma'am. Fresh out of boot camp. Ready for anything." Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, a signal. She glanced at their posture, their breathing, the tension in their hands. Every detail told her more than their words. She already knew how each one would fall. "I bet you couldn't even pass our PT test," Jenkins added, trying to provoke her. The others chuckled nervously. The room grew quieter. Sarah stood, not quickly, not defensively. She rose like someone who had all the time in the world. She straightened her uniform, adjusted her insignia, and looked at them with steady eyes. "For seconds," she said calmly. "That's all I'll need." The recruits blinked, confused. "For seconds, what, to teach you something you will never forget?" The mess hall fell silent. Chairs scraped as sailors leaned to watch. Trays clattered to tables. Forgotten, the recruits grinned nervously, still believing they held the upper hand. Sarah stepped into the open space of the hall. Her movements were relaxed, yet every muscle seemed ready. The recruits followed, smirking, trying to keep their confidence alive. But unease had begun to creep into their voices. "Relax," Sarah said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you, if you pay attention." The recruits squared up, forming a circle around her. Some sailors whispered bets, others simply stared. Everyone knew something was about to happen. Sarah scanned the four men briefly, then exhaled, steady, controlled. The lesson was about to begin. The mess hall had grown still. Forks hovered mid-air. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Every turned toward the circle of space where Sarah Hayes now stood. 4 recruits surrounded her, each grinning with a mix of arrogance and nervous excitement. They thought this would be entertainment, a chance to show off before the older sailors. Sarah stood with her arms loose at her sides, breathing slow. Her stance was relaxed, almost casual, but there was something in the way she held herself, a quiet readiness that made even seasoned sailors lean forward in anticipation. Jenkins, the tallest recruit, was first. His pride was loudest. He cracked his knuckles and rolled his shoulders, speaking so everyone could hear. "Don't say we didn't warn you, ma'am." Sarah said nothing. She simply watched. Jenkins lunged forward, throwing a heavy punch meant to knock her backward. His fist cut the air, full of strength. but it struck nothing. Sarah shifted lightly to the side. She barely moved, yet his momentum carried him past her. With a turn of her wrist, she guided his arm downward. Jenkins stumbled forward, his balance gone. Before he could recover, she tapped his shoulder and let gravity finish the rest. He hit the floor with a thud. The hall gasped. Jenkins rolled to his knees, his face red with shock more than pain. "Lucky," he muttered. Sarah's voice cut through the silence. "Calm even. Strength without awareness is blindness." Before Jenkins could rise, Bren stepped in. His style was different. He prided himself on speed, on cleverness. He smirked, circling her slowly. "I won't fall for tricks," he said. He feinted left, then struck from the right, quick and sharp. But Sarah was already gone. She stepped aside, redirected his wrist with 2 fingers, and let his own momentum carry him. Bren's knees slammed into the floor. He gasped, shocked by how little effort it had taken. "Speed without patience," Sarah said softly, "is noise without music." The mess hall erupted in whispers. Some sailors nodded knowingly, others shook their heads in disbelief. Kellen stepped forward next. Unlike the others, he carried himself with quiet pride. He thought of himself as controlled, more disciplined. He bowed his head slightly, mocking respect. "I am not like them," he said. Sarah tilted her head, studying him. "No," she replied, "your arrogance wears a softer face, but it is arrogance still." Kellen attacked carefully, with measured strikes, but Sarah met each one with ease. She didn't block, she redirected, flowing around him as though guiding water down a stream. Each strike grew more desperate until, at last, she caught his wrist, twisted gently, and lowered him to the ground as if setting down a child. His breath came fast, his face burning with frustration. "Control without humility," Sarah said, "is only a cage, and you are locked inside it." The sailors watching were silent now. The air was thick with awe. Only one remained, Darren, the youngest. His grin hadn't faded. If anything, seeing his friends fall only fed his pride. He stepped forward boldly. "You're quick," he said, "but you're still old. Your time is past." Sarah looked at him with calm eyes. "Age teaches what youth ignores," she said. "You will learn this now." Darren charged. He was fast, reckless, a storm of fists and kicks. He shouted with each strike, his breath loud and fierce. But Sarah did not meet him with force. She flowed around him, her body moving like water. Each punch struck only air. Each kick missed its mark by inches. His frustration grew. His speed turned into sloppiness. Then Sarah ended it. She stepped aside, placed a hand lightly on his chest, and turned her body. His own momentum carried him off balance. He hit the floor hard, the sound echoing across the hall. Silence followed, for recruits lay scattered on the deck, groaning, their confidence shattered. Sarah stood alone, calm and unshaken, as if she had done nothing extraordinary. She looked down at them not with scorn, but with quiet authority. "You came seeking a test," she said. "Now the first lesson is given. Power without awareness is emptiness. Pride without wisdom is defeat." The mess hall remained silent. Sailors stared, some with mouths open, others with faint smiles of admiration. They had seen drills before. They had seen sparring, but this was different. This was mastery. Sarah adjusted her uniform and returned to her table. She lifted her coffee cup, took a sip, and opened her manual again, as if nothing had happened. The 4 recruits, still on the floor, felt the weight of every eye on them. Their laughter was gone. Their pride had been cracked open in front of the entire hall, and yet, beneath the sting of humiliation, something else stirred. Respect. For the first time since boot camp, they understood what true skill looked like. The 4 recruits lay scattered across the mess hall floor. Their bodies ached, but their pride burned hotter than their bruises. The cold linoleum pressed against their backs and palms, a harsh reminder of how quickly they had been undone. Around them, sailors whispered. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others chuckled softly, but no one mocked cruelly. What they had seen was too precise, too controlled, to laugh at. It wasn't humiliation for the sake of spectacle. It was something deeper. Jenkins pushed himself up first, rubbing his sore shoulder. His face was flushed with embarrassment. He glanced toward Sarah, who sat calmly at her corner table once more, sipping her coffee and reading as though nothing unusual had happened. That composure unsettled him more than the fall itself. "She didn't even breathe hard," he muttered. Bren groaned, kneeling beside him. "She didn't fight. She redirected us, like we weren't even worth her time." His voice was quieter than usual, stripped of its earlier bravado.